I know. So with that in mind, you obviously stayed here in the area.
Yes.
And had a family. How did you and your wife meet? You and Connie meet? Did she go to Fife too?
No,
No.
I had to go out of town to get away. We met at the Swiss Hall in Tacoma.
Okay. All right.
She was up there with a girlfriend. They both like to do Scandinavian and Swiss dances.
Gotcha.
And so she was up there with her girlfriend Edna, and a friend, buddy of mine, Leo Bolleri, and I were up there on a Saturday night.
Is Leo from Fife? Did he?
Yeah, he was from
Okay,
Fife. He
all
lives
right.
in Gig Harbor now. And we were up there. They had some social of some kind. So that was a place for everybody to go hang out because you knew everybody anyhow. So you just go up there and have a bottle of beer or something like that. We went up there, and a friend of ours came running up and said, "Leo, Herb, I want you to meet these two girls." It was a lady, you know, Yenta type. So we went up and met Edna and Connie, and we had a nice chat and talked a little bit. And you know, when Leo and I weren't looking for ladies per se, but, so we headed off and went about our way. And a couple of months later, one of the guys said, "Do you remember those girls you met up at the Swiss Hall?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, why don't you go see them over in Renton?" And I said, "Well, Renton, that's 20 miles away from here. That's not my." So anyhow, I went over and saw Edna first, and then she took me up and said, "Well, let's go up and see Connie." So I went up and saw Connie. And back to the Swiss, we were up at the Swiss Park one time up at Buckley,
Oh,
off of 410 up there. There was a big celebration going on up there. And I wanted a date. And Connie came walking out and took a pretty little lady. And I said, "Would you like to go out with me on Saturday night?" I had some kind of a function going where I needed a lady. And she said, "Yeah, I'd like to go with you." So that started the ball rolling there. So 6 months later, we were, I think 6 months, 8 months later, we were man and wife and living a good life.
and you had how many kids?
Three.
Three, and they all also went to Fife High School.
All went to Fife, yeah.
Yeah. And what are their names?
Danny, or Daniel, I should, lives right back behind me. And Brian is down in Portland. And Kristen is over at Lake Tapps. They're all married and have families and things like that.
And I understand Kristen was a cheerleader at Fife High School.
Kristen was a cheerleader, yeah.
And your boys played sports?
Brian did. Dan was not interested. He was more into cars and fixing cars and things like that. Kristen would go back to the truck garden when she was, senior, junior year. She worked down in the gardens on Saturdays and Sundays whenever she was free. And she'd come home, pick her up, go down and pick her up, and she'd have a bunch of onions all day. So she smelled like onions. She'd get in the car, tired, and come rolling home. She'd go in and take a hot bath. She'd dress up like, lipstick and skirts and everything else. And all of a sudden, she's a beautiful young lady, goes out on a date. And the boys the same way. They'd come home from work tired and everything like that. And of course, I was the same way. I'd come home tired and take a nice hot shower to shave and clean shirt. And I was ready to go for the night. Yes.
And where were they raised here?
Right here.
Right here.
Well, Dan and Brian lived down the Willows Road. We came up here, I think, when Dan was about 6 and Brian was about 4. And so we had Brian and Dan down there, and we come up here and built that house, and then Kristen was born a couple of years later.
And where was that house at?
Right next door here.
Okay.
right
Right
over
next door. That
Yeah.
was where you had the kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then was this a empty lot, or was this part of your?
I had 5 acres.
5 acres.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
about that.
Okay.
And then the Hyberg kids over there, that's Larry, Chris, and Randy, they were all schoolmates of my boys. So they grew up together and played on the hillside and did their things and did things we didn't know about too. Like I did.
Yeah. So I understand you're part of the Fife School Board,
I was, yeah.
and so tell me a little bit about that. What years? What were some of your experiences? And
Well, there's my retirement plaque there. I was in there from 65 to 77.
oh yeah.
That was another unique thing. I had no thoughts or ambitions or particular even knowledge. I knew at school board, I didn't pay that. I knew much of the guys on the board that from the old days in Fife there. And I got a phone call one day, and from a friend of mine that I've been associated with in a service club and things like that. And he said, have you ever thought about going for election to the school board? And I said, no, that was probably the farthest thing from my mind. I had a lot of other things going on at that time. And I said, not really. He said, well, we really look for somebody to come on the board, run against this person that's running on the board unopposed. So we'd like to have somebody, just some opposition anyhow. And I talked a little bit about it. I said, I've never associated with a school district per se. I know about the people down there and things like that, but I just hadn't given it any thought at all. And so he said, give it a thought. So I called a couple of the guys, and the guy said, okay, yeah, I think you should. And I thought, well, if they think I should, then I'll give it a try. So I did win the position and stayed there for 12 years. It was a great time. There's another learning curve. You go on there, and there's a whole bunch of state, federal regulations and county regulations you have to follow, and it's not, some people come to the board and say, we want this done, we want that. And you can't do it because the state says you can't do it, the county says you can't do it, the federal government says you can't do it. They say, I don't care, I want it done. You got to convince them that it doesn't work that way. There are rules and regulations and all the other things you have to follow. So it's a learning curve to learn all those things. And if you have a good superintendent, like we had Bob Hall was our superintendent then, and Dr. Carl Stegman was hired, came in after Bob Hall, were very good managers, very good professional people, and made the district grow and kept it out of financial troubles and out of other potential troubles that come along with all that diversity when you have different kids coming to school and things like that. So it was a good time, very good time.
Do you remember any major changes you guys made, or some major?
No, I think everything ran very, very smooth. I think the biggest thing that shocked me is when I was on the board, we built the middle school in Milton.
Which is now being torn down.
Which is now being torn down.
I just drove by that this morning.
I thought, now there are changes.
Yeah.
In fact, my grandson down in Portland is working for a big erection and demolition company. And I talked to him a couple of months ago, and he was tearing down a big building down at Montgomery Park down in Portland. And I said, and he said, it's a dirty job, it's dusty and dirty, and we're digging out big, huge concrete bulkheads and bases. And I said, well, what was the building? The building was called ESCO. ESCO was a big foundry years ago, and they made big logging equipment and mining equipment and dredging equipment. They were big, huge foundry. I used to call on ESCO when I was in sales, and I'd selling them patterns and equipment and things like that. So I'd call on ESCO and try to sell them and keep their business going and get their. All of a sudden, 40 years later, my grandson's tearing the dang building down.
Oh my gosh!
So that's progress for you.
Right.
So you have to accept it. That's what the way the buggy whip went away and the gas car came. Now the electric car is going to come in and wipe the gas car out. It sounds like so. You have to accept those. You can debate them and you can argue with them a little bit, but time to be mellow.
Right.
Take care of that.
So you played a big part in the Surprise Lake Middle School. Then getting
we were on the board when we had that, did the selection of the architects and all that kind of stuff, and watched it build up there. That's the dedication. Yeah, that was fun. That was a different time.
So even picking the spot, that was something you.
Yeah,
the location.
We had a hand in that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. I just drove by that this morning, and
I haven't been by it. I